I welcome you to Milwaukee Metropolitan Community Church, but this evening we welcome you to our Good Friday watch party with our siblings from Christ Church, United Church of Christ. I am Reverend Tori Tupchin. I'm the senior minister here, and Reverend Dan Stark is the senior minister at Christ Church. This evening we bring a little bit of Good Friday to you virtually as our gift going into this solemn next few days.
This evening's Good Friday service is set as a non-violent service of atonement after the death of Jesus, but before his resurrection. It's based on the 7 last words of Christ from the cross, and essentially is a memorial service for him. Each of the characters who will be speaking tonight have been impacted by Jesus' passion for ministry and for people. And so tonight we hear the Passion of Jesus Christ, a service written by Pastor Tim Tatinen of St. Mark's Lutheran Church of Cudahy, Wisconsin. We are hopeful that hearing about Jesus' passion can inspire you and bring meaning for you on this Good Friday evening. Well, good evening, friends and family of Jesus of Nazareth. Tonight, we gather to remember one who touched so many lives. Is there anyone that would like to share a few words about Jesus of Nazareth this evening?
Hello, my name is James. I'm a brother to John, and together we are known as the Sons of Thunder, mostly for my brother's hot temper. Jesus was always trying to impress upon us that it is better to forgive than to get even. I remember one time when he climbed up onto the top of a mountain and the crowds followed. He sat down and began to teach. I got this feeling that this is what our ancestors must have felt like listening to Moses on Mount Sinai. The words Jesus said were so profound and struck a chord with all who listened. He said, "You have heard it said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say, love your enemy and pray for those who persecute you." Love your enemy? What? This teaching was so amazing and different from all the other teachers of the law. I will never forget Jesus' passion for forgiveness.
Hello, my name is Levi, and when I heard Jesus say the word paradise, it made me think of the first day that I met him. The day that my life was changed forever. I guess I should start at the beginning. One day, while I was working in my father-in-law's bakery, I noticed a small sore on my left wrist, and it got worse. And I knew what it was, and I tried to hide it. And soon after I had another, but it was on my cheek. And at once I was forbidden from seeing my family and brought outside the gate, never to return. I didn't even get a chance to say goodbye to them. Occasionally I would see my wife from a distance, once on my birthday, and she brought my kids to the village gate to look at me through tear-filled eyes. I wish that I had never been born. People assumed the reason I contracted leprosy was because of some great sin that I refused to confess, and they looked at me like I was condemned. One day, Jesus was on his way down from the mountain. He was passing by with his disciples, and one of his disciples warned him that there was a leper ahead and called for me to make way. Instead of keeping his distance, though, he walked right over to me and he offered this customary greeting of an old friend. He hugged me. He then instructed me to go and wash and show myself to the priest, and then I could return home to my family. I went at once and I did each step, and I felt more hopeful. I actually could feel my body being healed. And after being examined by the priest, I finally got to go home. It was paradise. The feel of my wife's embrace, getting to hug my kids again, so tight, it was like they would never let go. I kept looking down at my skin, seeing the places where I had been made new. And because of this, you can bet I will never forget Jesus' passion, his passion for healing.
I am Jonas, a rich young man, and even in his last hours, Jesus was still caring for others. He was creating a lasting connection between his friend, the disciple John, and his mother, so they would care for each other in their grief after his death. This truly is the secret to a great life, loving and being loved. I learned this myself from Jesus, well, not how one might imagine. It all started when Jesus came and taught in our town. I asked him a trick question that I hoped would get him into trouble. I was looking to put him in the middle of the debate between the Pharisees, who believed in life after death, and the Sadducees, who didn't. I asked him, "What must I do to inherit the life that is to come?" Jesus said, "Keep the commandments." I then asked him, "Which ones?" He told me that the ones that I have to deal with how I treat others, I told him that I have kept them all from my youth, which is true. Because of my lifestyle, I have not murdered. I have no need to steal or to covet anything anyone else has, because I have no more than anyone else. I have nothing to gain by lying about anyone or dishonoring my parents. So then he looked at me with love in his eyes and told me, "Go and sell everything you have and give to the poor." I left in despair, fearing that he was right. The life I was living seemed great at times, but too often I was isolated and fearful. Sometimes you can have a lot, and sometimes it can have you. So I decided to give it a try. I started small. I decided to give my servants each a small amount of money and thank them for their loyalty. I couldn't believe how good it made me feel. I felt lighter. Then I started canceling the debts of the people who owed me money. More joy. I threw banquets and invited everyone, rich and poor alike, and treated them all equally. I just got swept up in bringing about the life that is to come right here and now. I must have gotten carried away because after a while there wasn't much left. Now all I seem to have is a simple life with my friends. Come to think about it, Jesus didn't really answer my question, or did he? I will never forget about Jesus' passion for loving and being loved.
My name is Andrew. I'm a disciple of Jesus. When I heard Jesus cry out in desperation, "My God, why have you forsaken me?" it made my heart sick. How could he believe that God could ever forsake him? I guess it shows that Jesus was really human. It reminds me of a time when we all felt forsaken. It was right after Jesus' cousin, John the Baptizer, had been beheaded. Jesus had been teaching and healing all day long and was totally caught up in his ministry. I wanted to tell him to take some time for himself and to send the crowds away. At the end of that long day, he sent us on ahead of him by boat across the Sea of Galilee so he could be alone to pray and to grieve. No sooner had we left the shore than a strong storm came up out of nowhere. Now, before I met Jesus, I was a fisherman, and I had weathered more storms on Galilee than I can remember. But this storm was different. We rowed with all that we had, and even threw everything we could overboard, but still couldn't seem to keep the water from coming up over the sides of the boat. The wind seemed to be coming in all directions at once. This went on for hours, and we thought we were going to die. Then James noticed what looked like a ghost coming to us on the water. We cried out in fear, and then Jesus said, "Take courage, it is I." My brother Peter jumped up and said, "Lord, if it is you, call me to come to you on the water." And we were all astonished when Peter climbed out of the boat and began walking on the water. But then a strong wind came up, and Peter became frightened and started to sink. Jesus stretched out his hand and saved him. When they were safely in the boat and the wind and the waves started to die down, we were all amazed and relieved. We realized that even when we didn't believe, he believed in us. I will always remember Jesus' passion for trusting God.
is Leah, and I once heard Jesus tell me he was thirsty and ask me for a drink. I didn't know how to respond, as he was a Jew and I merely a woman and a Samaritan. I had gone to the well to draw water in the heat of the day, hoping that no one would be there to mock me. You see, having been divorced and set aside by all 5 of my former husbands, I was mortified when he asked me about my husband, and assumed he would ridicule me like the others because of my shameful life. Instead, he told me he already knew, and then changed the subject, and told me he had living water that could produce new life. After we talked, both by the things he said and the way he treated me, I knew he was the Messiah. I will always remember that day and his passion for outcasts like me.
I am Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, one of the 12. It is finished. I betrayed my friend into the hands of the chief priests and elders. With a kiss, no less, a sign of peace. I guess you could say I did it to force his hand, to make him step up and take what is rightfully his. How could he call himself the Son of Man, like the one from the book of Daniel, the one who comes and overthrows the beasts of the imperial oppression, the deliverer of Israel? How could he allow God's holy city, this holy city, to be occupied by Rome? I expected that he would call fire down from on high and scorch this God-forsaken place. It almost worked. Peter tried to fight. He drew his sword and struck first, but Jesus wouldn't fight. He even healed the soldier who came to arrest him. I know he had the power to attack, but refused to use the only language that the soldiers understood. Nothing will ever change. He will be dead soon, and everything he did will be forgotten. I am a fool. I realize now that violence was never his way. Instead, his passion is for peace.
This is Peter, one of the 12, the one who denied Jesus not once but 3 times. I can't believe I could have. I would have died for him. Yet when the moment of truth came, I couldn't even live for him. I can't bear to watch as our Lord was handed over to be tried and sentenced, and now hanging on the Roman cross. He now gives us spirit to the hands of God. How many times did Jesus tell us that this was what would happen? Speaking truth to power always has consequences. How did we ever believe that somehow this wouldn't be different? I'm alone and I'm afraid. I don't know where my brothers are and can't believe this is really happening. Jesus cared far too much for life and was creating a new way of living. A way of loving not just your own, but also the other. A way that worked for all people, not just those who could afford it. He showed us a new side of God that cared not just for the holy, but for the everyday. He showed us that God could be weak and the humility is stronger than might. Maybe he went too far, for now it has weakness that is on display for all to see. Now the sky grows cold and dark, and it was with time. I too commend my spirit to the mercy of God Almighty. Jesus' passion, it was and is and always will be justice.